Good evening. Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about traveling into the wilderness of Alaska. They say that the journey is half the fun of travel. I don't know about half, but it certainly is a good part of the adventure when traveling to the wilderness. When I say wilderness, I'm talking about out there where there's no roads, no buildings, no other people, nothing but Mother Nature. So it is possible to get into this type of wilderness in other ways than what I'm going to talk about. You could, for instance, take a couple weeks and drive up the Alcan Highway. You could maybe ride horses or take ATVs or boats into the wilderness, but that hasn't been my experience, and I don't believe that's typical. I would say probably 90% of the people that are traveling from the lower 48 up into the wilderness of Alaska are going to do it just like I described and just like I've done. I've actually been reading about traveling to Alaska my whole life, newspaper articles, magazine articles, several books, and so forth. And I've made 2 trips up there. The first one was about 2 weeks, and the second one was about 7 days or a week. And so I have a pretty good bit of knowledge on that. Basically what you're going to do, you're going to start out on a regional jet, smaller, your local airport, and fly into a hub. That would be Chicago here in the Midwest, where you're going to get on a much larger jet for the 6-hour flight into Anchorage. 6 hours is a long flight, plenty of time for a couple of movies and maybe a nap. Once you get into Anchorage, then you're going to get on another small regional jet and fly into your final destination of a major type airport, somewhere like Ketchikan or Fairbanks, Prudhoe Bay, Kotzebue View, depending on where you're going in the area. You're probably at that point you're going to overnight, because it's going to take them the whole day just to get that far. And then in the morning you're going to get up and get on your first private charter plane, which will be a much smaller plane, maybe 1 or 2 propeller deal that seats maybe 4, 6, 8 people, something like that. And then you're going to fly into your last real airport or airstrip. It might be a gravel airstrip, but it's going to be an official landing place, where once you get there, then you're going to get into a smaller plane, something like a Super Cub or a Helio that seats maybe 2 or 3 people, including the pilot, and fly out into the brush, where you're going to land on what I like to refer to as a brush strip. It might be just a place where they've hacked out the brush and kind of leveled out the ground a little bit. It might be a gravel bar on a river. Might not be really anything. It might just be a flat spot where they know they can land the airplane. So, and then once you get there, that's the end of the trip. You're there. But there's 2 real major considerations when traveling like this. The first thing up there, of course, is the weather, and the other thing is the weight. The weather up there, it changes constantly. It'll be clear 1 minute or 1 hour, and foggy the next hour, and then raining or maybe snowing. Even in the summertime, I've had snow up there. So you could get up that morning, go to get on your charter flight, and be socked in and not go anywhere the whole day. I was once socked in at a base camp for 3 days. Nobody could fly in, nobody could fly out. So I mean, it's something that you really have to prepare for and be ready for, because it is a problem up there. And then the other thing is the weight limits. These little planes, you have maybe 70 to 90 pounds max for weight, which wasn't really a big deal for me because I had an outfitter when I was up there, so I didn't really have to supply any cooking equipment or food. I just had to take my own personal gear and clothes and survival gear. So really 70 pounds wasn't that big of a problem. But it's a really serious thing, because planes do crash up there every year. And for instance, on my other visual aid here, this is a photo I took out the window. This is the shadow of the plane I'm in. This is the like I said, just a smoothed out gravel spot that they were using to land the airplane on. We were coming in to land, and you might have to come up here and look at this a little bit closer. It doesn't really show up very good in this, but right here there's a plane crash at the end of the runway. That's a real comforting thought when you're going into land. I don't know, it's out in the middle of nowhere, so I guess they just didn't clean it up. It'd been there for a long time, or 2 or 3 years I would guess it had been there, so I guess they just didn't see the need. But it is something that's very real up there. I mean, it really comes down to 3 things. I mean, you really got to plan ahead. You got to allow yourself enough time. You're not going to get up there, get in and out in 4 or 5 days. 7 to 10 days is probably minimum. Especially, like I said, I spent 3 days weathered in one time. 3 or 4 days weathered in happens all the time. So maybe more than that I've heard of before. So You really got to allow enough time to have some weather delays. It's just part of the deal. I mean, it happens up there all the time. And then the gear. You got to par your gear down to just the bare necessities. There's really no extra gear, no luxuries. It's just, like I said, your survival gear, minimum amount of clothing, and then whatever gear for whatever activity you might be doing up there in the wilderness. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, it comes down to planning and preparation and just having a good time once you get there. Thank you for your attention.